Hello everyone, it's been a while, but worry not, I am back, and today I will be talking about the best hero and major reworks released since Overwatch 2 came out, specifically talking about their gameplay design and how much good they did for the game with their addition. This will be a top 5 with some honorable mentions, as I already spoke about some of the lesser good ones on another video, and as a disclaimer, this is just my opinion. If you differ, write down in the comments what you think. Discussion is always valid, and without further ado, let's begin. For the first honorable mention, we have, well, I'm a bit conflicted about it. I would personally put Freya here, but since she is rather new, and her release was just a bit of a boom due to how strong she was, I don't feel like it's valid to include her just yet. But honestly, Freya feels like they took everything they learned with Sojourn and made a hero that, despite having very high highs and some frustration attached due to the burst potential, she has a far more reasonable pattern and counterplay, so I still wanted to talk about her. The things that held her down are her incredibly good target access, which, mixed with the burst potential, is probably the least healthy part about her, since it can feel like there isn't much you can do about it, but pray that you get healed between her shots. But her high skill expression, mobility and execution feel really good to pull off a master. Her passive does feel a bit pointless, but that's probably due to her ult being just not that good to begin with, and sometimes even harmful for Freya to use due to its cast time. Again, she's new, and I'm sure Blizzard will continue to tune her to an even better state, so she's just outside the honorable mentions for now. For the first honorable mention, and the only rework we have here, is Doomfist. Doomfist was one of the most controversial releases in the original Overwatch, packed with a one-shot, incredible mobility, CC, and an insane amount of bugs. There was always something worth talking about, usually not positively, surrounding his design. Due to a reliance on CC on his kit, as well as the tendency to remove one-shots, Blizzard decided Doom should have been changed to a tank, one that still has the fundamental burst potential and mobility, but a tad less sharp and more versatile. Although Uppercut was removed, some changes make up for it in terms of mobility, while Block added a layer of variance on his pattern and an extra defensive tool best suited for a tank. He's still a very aggressive hero with low team utility, but that fits the character quite well. On release, yeah, well, he sucked, but he rather quickly found a solid place, and to this day he's one of the tanks with the most amount of dedicated players in the game. Was the rework perfect for all DPS Doom players? No, of course not, but considering the role swap, it really maintained the overall feel of the hero while removing the more toxic aspect of his kit. Yeah, rollouts, I'm talking about you. Now, in my opinion and based on his higher than average ban rate, he's just short of being on the top 5 due to Empower Punch being wide overtuned and warped to his kit, especially with the Matrix perk that makes it very easy to obtain and makes his skill expression a bit pointless, and you can just play to charge it and fish for one shots afterwards, which is much easier and forgiving to pull off. Block also isn't that great of a tool, it's kind of sluggish, but yeah. I believe that if they nerf Empower Punch and made some areas slightly better, he would receive less hate and will make him overall healthier for the game, but it is easily the best reward to come out since Overwatch 2, when the competition are these guys. Before going over the top 5, if you like the video, remember to leave a like and subscribe, and if you're interested in more Overwatch content, you can check over my other videos, it helps a ton. The first on the list is Ramattra. A highly expected character after the Storm Rising teaser, Ramattra finds itself as a pretty solid design overall, but with some flaws that have become very apparent over time. The reason he's in the top 5 is that he hasn't been a major issue at any point, like most of the hero released in the last years, and has overall been on the popular side. Especially in China for some reason, I guess they really just like mechas. His form change and ultimate bring pretty interesting dynamics between when it's best to go in as a melee beast or stay poking and playing from afar, that are unfortunately scuffed due to his block, which is the only reason he isn't higher. Block being unlimited and without a cooldown unfortunately means he's, balanced around that fact, which makes it optimal in many scenarios to just standard block as long as your ultimate is up, which nullifies more of the skill expression and counterplay of form usage that other heroes have. Ravenous Vortex is also not amazing in execution. The idea of a tank with anti-verticality is cool, but in practice it's better to use it as a CC tool against slower targets, thankfully diminished by Vengeable Vortex, which makes it a great tool against mobile and even flying heroes, but that's a major perk. His poke form also allows him to have some decent range, which isn't common on tanks, and allows tank players to have other supporting option for poke heroes besides Sigma. Overall, a solid hero that many enjoy and not so many hate, but could still be improved in certain areas. For number 4 we have Hazard. Hazard might have been a rather controversial release in terms of his visual design, which I personally disagree with. I love how unique he looks and his personality, but that is not what we're focusing on today. Gameplay wise, Hazard is a hybrid between a dive and a brawl tank. Strong target access and mobility, while not as crazy as someone like D.Va or Winston. A good mix of burst and sustain damage with a neat utility tool on his wall and his ultimate. Though Mei already has a wall, Hazard is basically a healthier but more proactive version of it. Worse at trapping tanks due to the smaller size, while much better at isolating, controlling, and killing mobile heroes due to its spikes, while his dash has a considerable knockback to force people into his wall. His ult has a nice mind game to it, since when you hear it come out, you can predict a bit of its trajectory, but Hazard can also control it for a bit before it lands. It's kinda cool. While still having some counterplay even if you do get hit, as you only get rooted rather than a stun. His block is a vast improvement from Ramatras, since not only it has a resource bar, and a cooldown, meaning it's better to use it as an anti-burst or when hit by CC or anti, but since he's a close-range dive tank and a smaller size, it is much more possible to surround him and hit him where he isn't blocking, something that Ram can make harder, especially while ulting. It's also much less sharp in terms of matchups compared to Matrix, while it is some damage so he can still keep up some pressure up close while blocking. It also grants him a kind of niche AoE tool, but still it's there and it serves a purpose. My only gripe with it is that maybe its resources slightly big, making him a bit safer than he should be, while also making the damage portion of Spike Guard a bit more obnoxious, especially with the minor perk. I am also not completely sold on Guard slowly reloading his weapon, as it basically makes him a 0 downtime hero, which isn't that big of a deal when you're solo tanking on 5v5, but overall he's a really fun tank to play with unique tools, whether you like the brawl or dive tanks that still allow for good counterplay. At number 3 we have Venture. Venture is a very unique hero for multiple reasons. They almost feel like an old school release with only one primary, 2 basic abilities and an ultimate, while still having a completely unique playstyle and gameplay loop that is somewhat similar to old Doom DPS, with the going in, bursting someone and going out, while being much healthier due to the more grounded nature of the kit, making them much more predictable and easier to counter by normal measures. At the same time, the Venture player has access to very strong tools with the on-target ability, strong mobility, and shields as defensive options, while packing strong burst damage that is all about finding the perfect opportunity to find an isolated target and kill them. At first, when you look at the kit, you would think they would be the perfect tank bully, moving them around and whatnot, but due to the bursty nature of the kit, as well as CC being a huge weakness for them, really alleviates that potential issue, and you won't see many Venture players even trying to play that way, and it's much better used to take squishies out of the team to isolate them. My main issue with Venture was the ult, as it felt really bland and boring to use due to a short duration that basically forced you to use it as soon as possible, but heck, the minor perk makes it 10 times better. The duration is still the same, but it can be used as a combo damage amplifier that helps a ton to secure kills, much more fitting to their pattern than the huge AoE damage spam. I really hope they never remove it or make it part of the base kit cause it improves it a lot. Is Venture for everyone? No, absolutely not, but that doesn't mean they are poorly designed, and they have a very strong player base that love the hero, and I hope they continue making more of these niche style heroes. For number 2 we have Juno. Juno is the best designed accessible support by far and has held a very strong but positive presence in the game. Not only is she the second support with a speed boost on a normal ability, which opened up a ton of new comps as she doesn't have the low healing of Lucio, but she also has a decent amount of skill expression despite having a low skill floor. Aim and mobility will always allow good Juno players to differentiate themselves from the more casual and newer ones, and while torpedoes have aim lock, it still provides some cooldown management as it can be used defensively due to its instant healing, or offensively, not only for damage but as a zoning or pressure tool. The fact that the cast time varies depending on the distance forces the Juno players into riskier positions to get the most value out of the ability, which I think is a very clever layer on an auto-aim ability that isn't very common. At the same time, the way Juno survives is purely of movement and positioning, which is a blessing in a time where most supports have very strong and easy self-build abilities to use, like Bab's Lamp and Burst, Kiriko Suzu, etc. Heck, she's the only support with no normal self-healing ability since Zen came out, who came out with the game. The only problematic part of her kit was her ultimate, but they did eventually nerf it at some point where, while strong, it isn't an instant win button and has much more counterplay than it used to. As for the best hero design of Forward 2, we have Junker Queen. It wasn't even a debate in my mind, to be honest. The last 3 were hard to place as they all have very strong arguments for being on multiple placements, but Junker Queen is peak Overwatch and we need to see more of this. She's a role hero that heavily incentivizes aggression and constant correct cooldown usage, as fucking up an axe swing can very well mean death, while the enemy can play around it due to its range and cast time. while finding the perfect moment, and you're even rewarded for hitting multiple targets, with not only the damage and healing but a lower cooldown, to reward your patience and help you snowball. She has a ton of skill expression, not only mechanically but very reliant on game knowledge due to how important it is for her to calculate the enemy tools and cooldowns and to manage her own based on that. At the same time, Knife Toss is basically a healthy hog hook with a better potential range but much less punishing, especially when playing around corners, as you can diminish the pull range by hugging a wall, which makes it much more rewarding for the Shankar Queen player when you actually pull off a great hook combo. Her shotgun is a very precise version of Hogs, which makes it worse at bullying tanks but better against smaller targets, and she can actually provide team utility with Shout, providing extra health and movement speed, and Rampage anti-heal. On Shout, this ability goes super well with how she's meant to be played. The extra HP can not only help against burst damage, especially when you can't land your abilities or the bleeding is cleansed, but it especially boosts her survivability when you have a ton of bleeds, as the temporary HP will tank damage while your base health gets healed by the bleeds. On Rampage, this ult on paper looks like the most broken thing ever, but it actually allows a very good balance between how powerful it is and the counterplay around it. It has a small cast time that faster players can punish by pooping or stunning her, ruining it completely, while the anti-effect can be cleansed. At the same time, the ultimate being very damage over time focused, lets players still act for a while and even focus down the queen if she hasn't hit enough targets. I am really grateful how they balanced her out after release, cause before her hitting was non-existing and she basically only found value on Shout and trying to play as a Temu rollhole. But she's currently my personal choice as the best design from Overwatch 2. That's all everyone, so what do you think about Overwatch 2 hero releases? Do you think we have seen the best already, or are the future heroes going to be even better? Thanks for watching and see you next time.